well over 5,000 languages across the world. And as the world seems to get smaller and travel between continents seems to be getting easier and easier, languages are starting to become more and more integrated amongst others. There are so many influences from the Spanish language, the French language, the Italian language, the Indian language, Arabic, that have all seeped into English. But today I want to talk about a few Spanish words which have deep etymological roots that derive from English. The first one is choni. Now choni is quite a derogatory term. It's actually referring to people of the lowest class within Spain. Now these people are, to us, chavs. We would call them chavs. Typically you see them laden with huge medallions or a lot of gold, big earrings, excessive amounts of makeup, and they're often to be thought quite promiscuous. But as well as referring to these people, it's also used as an insult. Oye, tú eres un choni. But this word is believed to have come from the Canary Islands. Now, many years ago, when there were a lot of tourists entering from the harbours and the ports, and indeed sailors of English origin, they used to shout out to each other, "Hey Johnny!" as a very common name. And the Spanish people started imitating this, but in a Spanish accent. Johnny, 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 hey Johnny, 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 Johnny. I have no idea how that translated from a man from the UK called Johnny to somebody of the lowest social class. Or maybe it's because the Brits who come to Spain on holiday are generally not the best representation of the British. The next word is bistec. Now bistec is also used in a number of other countries as well, namely throughout Europe. And there's no backstory to this, it's just the way in which we pronounce a certain food with their accent. For us, beef steak, and for a native Spaniard, bistec. Beef steak, beef steak, beef steak, bistec. Yeah, close enough. So the word bistec actually derived from the word beef steak, bistec. The next word is chachi. Now in Spanish, chachi is referring to something good. Now this comes from a time within Spain where there was prohibition and many articles were actually contraband. So there were a lot of things that the Spanish people couldn't actually get their hands on. Now the British actually saw a business in this. So they started to smuggle lots of articles into Spain. And the way in which people would check as to whether the products that they were selling were British, they would ask, chachi? And if the British person responded, yes, then this Spanish person would know that this was an item that was prohibited, but they could acquire from this British person. Now the code name that was actually used was Churchill, as in Winston Churchill. But much like the beefsteak, bistec translation, this was something that got lost within the Spanish accent. So where this item was regarded as Churchill, the Spanish people would ask, chachi? It's chachi? Yes, it's Churchill. Ah, chachi. No. It's Churchill. Sí, chachi. Yo digo chachi. No, it's Churchill. Churchill. Sí, chachi. So this was a good way for the Spanish people and the British people to communicate as to whether the items that they were selling were contraband. And it allowed them to speak freely without being noticed or caught for buying prohibited items. So the word chachi is actually a mispronounced word of Churchill. Another one is a very, very difficult one to kind of indulge in because the origins are not clearly known for sure. There are a couple of theories, and that word is okay. The word okay is now currently used all over the world. People use it as a gesture or to signify that things are going well, that things are good. One of the theories is that it came from a time of war where if nobody was killed, they would signal 0, okay, to state that there were 0 kills. But the most plausible construction of okay is apparently all correct, although misspelled apparently on purpose in a very jokey way. There are so many theories, but the all correct theory is actually one that has been dated back to the early 1800s, and there is documented proof of this, although nobody knows for sure. And the last Spanish word that has actually derived from an English word, which is actually pronounced almost identically, is boycott, which for us is boycott. Now the word boycott means to purposefully abstain from buying, using or dealing with certain persons, countries or organizations, usually as an expression of protest. The word actually derives from a gentleman's name, His name was Captain Charles Boycott, and he was a land agent during the Irish Land War. Now, the pieces of land that he was an agent for at the time, they had a terrible time with crop and growth. So they actually reduced the tenants and farmers' rent by 10%. After a couple of months, the tenants insisted on a minimum of 25% decrease in their rent, to which it was refused. Word spread fast, and long story short, people started to boycott the products, and farmers stopped working for Captain Charles Boycott. As a result, he was completely isolated. People stopped doing business with him, his friends disowned him, and he was left all alone. So the word boycott actually derived from the actions that happened to Captain Charles Boycott. They boycotted Boycott. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. Please feel free to click subscribe, hit like, do whatever you like. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. And yeah, see you next time.